The door splinters. Wood cracks against metal as three men force their way into the attic apartment. It's May 12, 2008, Zagreb. They're here about a property dispute, paperwork, ownership claims, the mundane machinery of bureaucracy. And then they stop. The air inside is different, stale, heavy with decades. The television sits there, its screen dark, a relic from another era, black and white, the kind you don't see anymore. On the table beside an armchair, there's a cup. Tea. Or what was tea once. The liquid evaporated long ago, leaving only a brown ring at the bottom. The curtains hang motionless. Cobwebs stretch across corners, across furniture, across time itself. Everything is covered in dust so thick it's become part of the objects themselves. The men don't speak. Not yet. Because in the bed, wrapped in blankets, there's something that shouldn't be there. A body, mummified, preserved by the dry air and isolation of this tiny 18 square meter space. The apartment hasn't just been empty, it's been frozen. A capsule sealed in 1966 and opened 42 years later. This is the apartment of Hedviga Golik, and nobody knew she was here. Here's what we know about Hedviga. She was born in 1924 in Rijeka, a port city on Croatia's Adriatic coast. She trained as a nurse, a profession that requires you to see people, to touch them, to care for them. Somewhere along the way, she moved to Zagreb and ended up in this attic apartment in the Medvešak neighborhood. The year was 1961. The apartment was given to her by a man named Hinkovic. He was the building's superintendent. He'd helped construct the place and received the attic flat as payment. He and Hedviga had been together once, boyfriend and girlfriend. Both were Jehovah's Witnesses, but whatever they'd shared had ended by the time she moved in alone. She had a sister, a school teacher. They'd quarreled. The details are lost now, but the result is clear. They stopped speaking. So Hedviga lived alone. And here's where her life becomes harder to see. The records thin out. The memories fade. What we have are fragments. Neighbors who remembered a quiet woman. Reclusive. Eccentric, some said. She communicated through notes slipped under doors. She avoided conversation. She worked at a community health center in Trešnjevka, but at some point that stopped too. Maybe she quit. Maybe she was let go. We don't know. What we do know is this. Hedviga was vanishing even before she died. Think about what it takes to disappear. Not to run away, not to leave, but to simply cease to exist in the minds of everyone around you. It requires a specific kind of isolation. You have to be so disconnected that your absence creates no void. No one calls, no one knocks, no one wonders. Hedviga told her neighbors she was leaving for a while. Some thought she'd joined a religious sect in Macedonia. Others believed she'd moved to Belgrade to live with relatives. These weren't facts, they were assumptions. Convenient stories that filled the space where a person used to be. And then in 1966, or maybe 1973, the exact year is uncertain, Hedviga sat down in her apartment. She made tea. She settled into her chair in front of the television, and at some point her heart stopped. No scream, no fall, no sound at all, just silence, and the silence held for decades. Here's what makes this story unbearable. People knew. In 1973, a neighbor filed a report with the police saying Hedviga was missing. There's a record of it, but nothing happened. No search, no investigation. No one checked the apartment where she'd lived for 12 years. By 1981, the other tenants in the building suspected she was dead. They paid off the loan on her apartment that year, a loan she would have been responsible for if she'd been alive. Think about that. They knew, or at least they suspected strongly enough to act on it, but they didn't report it. Why? Because they were arguing over who would get the apartment. Each tenant believed they had the right to at least 1 square meter of her space. The dispute dragged on. In 1991, a tenant representative named Mirko Horvatic told city authorities the apartment had been abandoned for 25 years. 25 years. But then the Yugoslav wars began, and the city had more pressing concerns than an empty attic flat. Meanwhile, the electricity stayed on for 42 years. The bills were paid automatically by the building's architect, the man who designed the place. He died 3 months before Hedviga's body was discovered. Until then, the lights in her apartment stayed on, burning in the dark, in an apartment where no one lived. When they found her, the forensic team said the smell of decay should have been overwhelming in the early days after her death. The neighbors said they only noticed it when the door was opened in 2008. Maybe they were lying. Maybe the attic's isolation, its position above the other floors, really did contain the smell. Or maybe people just didn't want to know. The autopsy couldn't determine her cause of death. Too much time had passed. Her body had mummified, preserved by the cold winters in the sealed room. She was buried the next day. No family came forward. No one claimed her. This is where the story should end. But it doesn't, does it? Because Hedviga Golik isn't just one woman in one apartment. She's a mirror. And what we see in it is uncomfortable. We live in a time of unprecedented connection, and yet people die alone and no one notices. There's a phrase for it now, kodakushi, lonely death. But this isn't just a Japanese problem. It's not just a Croatian problem. It's a human problem. How do you live in a building full of people and disappear for 42 years? The answer is simple and terrible, because Hedviga wasn't seen. She'd become invisible long before she died. I think about that cup of tea sometimes. She made it for herself. It was an ordinary moment. But for Hedviga, that was the last one. And the cup sat there, waiting, while the world outside changed completely. Yugoslavia dissolved, wars were fought, the Berlin Wall fell, the internet was invented, and in that attic apartment, time stopped. So what do we do with this? We could say it's a tragedy and move on, or we could ask ourselves harder questions. Who around us is becoming invisible? How many Hedvigas are out there right now slowly vanishing and we're too busy to notice? Hedviga Golik waited 42 years to be found. Let's make sure no one has to wait that long again.